Hello guys, welcome to my YouTube channel, and if this is your first time here, you're welcome to Start by Taiwo. To all our returning subscribers, thank you for staying with us. So in this video, we'll be learning how to make this blouse. Not just will you be learning how to make this blouse, you also learn how to make your inner dress very neat. I'll be explaining how to go about that to give a professional look. So if this is what you like, don't forget to also like, don't forget to subscribe and drop a beautiful comment. You doing that, you're helping our channel to grow. So let's get started. So I have my vertical measurement marked out here, and I just went ahead to divide my pattern paper into two equal halves and went ahead to mark out my vertical measurements on it. I have my chest line marked out, my bust point, under bust, then the half length for the front and the half length for the back. So I mistakenly marked out my under bust from the front to the back. So the difference between my front half length and my back half length is 1.5 inches, and the measurement I have from my back front half length down to my hip line is what I returned also to my back half length down to my back hip line. Also, whatever full length I had down there, I also went ahead to return it. And the full length I had here was 29 inches. So the next thing I'll just want to do now is to go ahead to mark out my neck width. And for my neck width, I have 3 inches. I worked with 3.5 inches and marked out my chest line, sorry, my shoulder length, and I came down by 1.5 inches. Now also after that, I would just want to go ahead to slant down to my neck width. So from there, after now, what I would just want to go ahead to do is to mark out my shoulder length and ensure what I have is accurate down so that I can go ahead to use my straight ruler to connect it. So I've gone ahead to use my straight ruler to connect it, and the next thing I want to do now is to get the midpoint here and come out by 3/4 of an inch. And after doing that, I want to go ahead to connect it just as you see me do here. The next thing what I want to do now is to go ahead to mark out my bust round divided by 4, and after marking it out, I want to use my curved pattern ruler to connect it. So the next thing now, I just want to go ahead to get my nipple to nipple measurement, which is my bust span measurement, and mark it on my bust point and also on my half length and connect it. So after which, I also want to do that on the on the hip line and also go ahead to connect it down also. So the next thing after this, now we want to go ahead to do our dart intake, and for my dart intake, I'm going to go ahead to measure 3/4 of an inch, 3/4 inch on the half length. I mistakenly measured on the under bust, but I corrected myself and also went ahead to connect it and also go ahead to connect to my hip line just like this. So after this, now just want to go ahead, mark my waist round divided by 4 and also add my dart intake. Go ahead, mark it out and connect to my bust point. Also want to go ahead, mark my hip round divided by 4. Whatever I have, I connect to my, and I'll go ahead to connect it to the half length. So from here, what I want to do now is to go ahead to get my side dart, which I've gone ahead to mark, and I added about 2 inches extra to the hip, which I went ahead to extend, and I got the midpoint from my shoulder slant and connected to the bust point. So that was what I just did here. So the next thing I'll be doing now is my under bust tightening. I went in by 3/4 of an inch in there and also came out by 1/4 of an inch. Now I just want to go ahead to use my pattern ruler to connect just as you see me do. And after connecting with my pattern ruler, the next thing I just want to go ahead to do is to connect to my dart leg. So I'll be using a princess dart for this, and I just want to go ahead to extend my line up. So what I just want to go ahead to do now is to come out by 1 inch. I'll just go in by 1 inch here, and after doing that, I'll go ahead to connect to my bust points. So the next thing now is that I want to go ahead to return the 1 inch. So I'll just go ahead to mark 1 inch out there and use my straight pattern ruler to connect it out, and also use my curved ruler to connect it to my armhole. So I just want to say what we are doing here is a princess dart, and it's also same thing as the normal princess dart we know that we connect to our armhole. So I would just want to go ahead right now to cut out, and the reason why I'm cutting out is because there will be need to close the 1 inch that we did on our shoulder length, on our shoulder slant. So I just want to go ahead to mark it out here, and I extended my side dart, and I'm going ahead to cut out from the middle just as you see me do. So please, so that this thing does not confuse you, just follow as I am doing. So I'm just going ahead to cut out there to my bust point, but I ensured not to get to the bust point. And what I'll so the next thing I'm just going to do now, I will want to go ahead, get my paper tape. You can use the paper tape or a cello tape to come ahead. This part where we opened now, we just want to go ahead to close it. So this is the same 1 inch that we are supposed to take when doing from the armhole, the other part of this other kind of princess that we do. So what we are doing now, when you close yours, I don't know, mine was aligned, but if you close yours, you will notice that the shoulder slant might not be well aligned. So if you notice yours is not well aligned, just go ahead, just as I'm doing here, use your marker to ensure it is well aligned and redraft again. So this is what I'm going to do right now, and next thing I'm going to do, I just want to go ahead to come up by 2 inch from there, 2 inches, and go ahead to connect to my bust point. So just ensure to place your pattern ruler well when connecting so that your princess dart can look well. So this is what we're going to be doing for the princess dart, and I did not extend to the new armhole we have. So just while you're doing, just extend to the new armhole that we have. So the next thing I want to do now is to go ahead to measure from this top. I want to go ahead to measure 22 inches down. So these 22 inches I'm measuring, I felt I would have done this before manipulating the bust points. So that's why I went ahead to measure from this other part. So you just want to go ahead, measure 22 inches down, and also want to come down also by 29 inches. And after marking from 29 inches from the midpoint and 22 from the side, I'll use my pattern ruler to connect it just as you see me do. And next thing is I want to go in by 2.5 inch from my center. So I wanted to ensure what I have is correct. So that's why I went ahead to come down here and ensure what I have is going to be correct. So I just want to, after marking my 2.5, I'll go up by 6 inches, and after which I mark that, I'll use my pattern ruler to connect. So the next thing, I noticed I've not done my neck depth. I don't want to go ahead to mark my neck depth. So I did 3 inches initially, but I later changed to 5 inches because I noticed the top, the neck was not that up, like it was not that fitted. So I will advise you do 5 inches. So you do, and after marking 5 inches, you go ahead to connect with your pattern ruler. So this is what we have for the front, and I just want to go ahead to move on to the back before cutting out. So for the back, what we're doing is just go ahead to return our basic measurements. So I've gone ahead to mark out my neck width of 3 inches and came down by 1.5 inch. So I went ahead to mark out my shoulders length 7.5 inch, and I came down by 1.5. Ensure what I have there, and also connect with my pattern, like get the midpoint, come out by 0.5, and after which I'll connect with my pattern. And I measured my bust round divided by 4, whatever measurement I have, and marked it down, connect also. The next thing I want to do is to mark out on my half length. I'll go ahead to mark in 0.5 inch and connect to my neck depth, and also want to go ahead to connect it down. So after now, the next thing I will do is to mark out my bust point, bust span measurement, my nipple to nipple, and also go ahead to mark out my dart. So for my back dart, I did 0.5, and I've also gone ahead to connect. So after which now, I'm going to go ahead to get my waist round divided by 4. Mark it down, and also my hip round divided by 4, and for my hip side I'll go ahead to return the 2 inches which we did for the front. So because we marked down 22 inches from down on our side front, so I also want to go ahead to do that for the back and connect, and that is that we are going to have for the back. And next thing we want to do now is to go ahead to cut out. So I would just want to ask for pardon that the back was a bit faster because I felt the back was the basic thing we've been doing. So this is the front and I'm going ahead to cut out my front. So I just want to go ahead cut out everything that I have here, and after cutting out for the front I'll go ahead to close my side dart for the front, and after which I'll also go ahead to cut out to my fabric for both the front and the back. So this is my back. I've gone ahead to cut out the fabric and I'm also gonna ahead to cut out my front fabric. So for this, I added half inch round, but for the side, I added 1 inch, and for the down, I also added 1 inch. I also went ahead to go with my gum stay, with my cloth gum, and I also went ahead to cut out to my lining also. So for this is my center front. I added half inch round, and I cut it on fold. So I also did same thing for the lining. So you just want to go ahead repeat same. So for the back, I just want to show you now. For the center, I added 1 inch, and this 1 inch is going to serve for our zip allowance. And I added 1 inch down, and side I added 1 inch. So the next thing we want to do first is to go ahead to sew in our dart for the back. And after sewing in our dart, we also want to go ahead to sew our zip to the back part. So for the back, we are going to be sewing the zip first to the fabric, but before then, don't forget to go ahead to mark sew your dart for both the lining and both the fabric, and after which you go ahead to sew your zip just only to the fabric parts. So after that, now you want to also go ahead to sew your front side just as you see me place it like this. Go ahead to sew it half inch round and also repeat this same process for the lining. So just go to your sewing machine and do that. So I'm done doing that here. This is my fabric for my front. I've gone ahead to sew by half inch, and after sewing you just want to go ahead to open the dart and open the dart and go ahead to iron it so that it can be flat. And you also want to go ahead, this is my back, this is what I have. I went ahead to sew my dart and also went ahead to sew the lining. So for the lining, so next thing we want to do now is to get our front, and you'll be repeating the same process also for the back. You sew the shoulder length by half inches and also go ahead to sew the side by 1 inch, which is the allowance that we left. So I've already gone ahead to do that for the lining part. I went ahead to sew, and what after this, now this is what it looks like. So you just want to go ahead to repeat the same process for the fabric. So the only difference is that our fabric has zip, but this lining does not have zip. I just want to go ahead do that. And for the lining, after sewing, please just do well to open your dart and press with iron. So this is what my lining looks like. So right here, I'm done with that, and the next thing we want to do now is to turn our lining with our fabric. So you just want to go ahead, place it like this, ensure this center is well aligned. So all these parts for the down, and you could use your office pin to hold it down so that when you're sewing to your machine, it does not shake away. So after sewing it down, you also want to go ahead to come to the up, lay it like this, use your office pin to hold it down, and also go ahead to sew. And when sewing, just ensure to sew by half inch almost everywhere. So I just noticed that my zip did not lay well there. I'll go ahead to stitch that. So after sewing for the up and the down, so you just want to come to the zip, go ahead also to sew on this line just as you see me do, and ensure to top stitch your zip part very well. So right here, I'm done with that. And what I want to do now, I've gone ahead to sew round. I sewed my down and I sewed my zipper part, and what I just want to do now is to go ahead to use my scissors to notch round so that when I'm turning over and when I'm going to iron, it's going to lay very well. And please, when sewing, please, I forgot to state that you shouldn't sew the armhole. The only part we are sewing is the zip, the neck, and our hem. That's the only part we are sewing. So we are going to use our armhole to turn it over. So what you want to do now is to go ahead to notch, and also want to go ahead to iron. When ironing, don't forget to open your dart so that it can lay flat. So I just want to go ahead notch round for the hem and both the neck parts. So after notching, I'll go ahead to notch round, and after notching, you might also want to go ahead to trim any excesses, and after which I'm using my armhole now to turn it over. After turning over this part, I'll just want to go ahead to iron, press it very well on with my pressing iron. So go ahead, turn it over, and go ahead to press it with your pressing iron. And when you're pressing, ensure that the lining go in by half inch so that your fabric can come out more and your lining will not be competing with your material, right? So that is that. And after this part now, the next part we'll be moving to is our sleeve. So you just want to go ahead to measure your arm cycle round for the dress. So now I'm going to come down here by 4 inches. So you could do 5 inches, but I will be doing 4 inches because 4 inches will be able to serve for me. But I'll advise you do 5 inches. And also go ahead to mark my width out and just want to go ahead to connect with my straight ruler. So after connecting with my straight ruler, the next thing I'll just want to do now is to get the midpoint of here and go ahead to mark it out. So the width of which I used here is my arm cycle of the blouse we're making, and I'm going ahead to connect up with my straight ruler. So next we want to mark up here is our bicep divided by 3 and move 0.5 inch from it. Whatever you have, you want to go ahead to mark it out. And after marking it out, you also want to go ahead, I will ensure the measurement I have, which is my arm cycle, my armhole round for my listing dress. Go ahead to connect just as you see me do here. So for this width, we are supposed to use our bicep, but why I'm using my armhole is that I do not want it to be shorter than what I have. So then after which, now from this point here, I want to go ahead to mark my sleeve length. So for my sleeve length, I'll be working with 7 inches, and I'll go ahead to mark it down and connect with my straight ruler. After connecting with my straight ruler, the straight line which we have here, I'll go ahead to extend it down. So I'll be working with 7 inches. So you, whatever sleeve length you're working with, that's what you're going to go ahead to mark. And you also want to go ahead to measure the width of whatever part it gets on your body part, and go ahead to divide it into two and mark it down here. So after which, now I've gone ahead to connect with my pattern ruler, and this is what I have now for my sleeve length. So the next thing I want to do now is to move to the upper part of this. So the next thing, I just want to go ahead first to mark out, this is for the front and also this is for the back, and this is the sleeve length I'm working with. And the reason is because the pattern way we're going to get our front is different from the back. So this is our cap length. So what I would just want to do now is to get the midpoint of that point, and whatever midpoint I get, I'll go ahead to mark it and go in from there by 0.5 inch. So I'll go in there by 0.5 inch and connect it just as you see me do. I'll connect it up and go ahead also to connect it here just as you see me do. So this part is a bit tricky. I actually prefer the normal sleeve just because it's a corporate dress. That's why I'm doing this. So the next thing, I'm just going to go ahead now to get the midpoint for our back, the part which we get for our back, and get the midpoint also, and I'll come up there by 0.5 inch, and after coming up by 0.5 inch, I'll use my pattern ruler to also want to connect it. So just watch as I use my pattern ruler to connect this part here, and this line which we are marked now, we'll just want to go ahead to serve as guide for our thing. So now from this point where you see me on this up here, I've gone ahead also to mark out the midpoint. So after marking the midpoint, what I just want to do on the line, so just want to go ahead, you want to go ahead mark the midpoint on the line down there and come down by 0.3 inch. And after coming down by 0.3 inch, use your straight ruler to connect it. And I don't know, my line extended, but just ensure that the 0.3 inch, the straight line we are drawing there, should just stay on the 0.3 inch. So when you're trying to connect, you don't get confused. So the next thing from this upper part also, I want to go ahead also to get the midpoint and mark it out. So I don't know, just try to follow as I'm doing this so that you don't get confused. And this is supposed to be on the up part, also go up there by 0.3 inch. The next thing I just want to know is to connect these lines together, and please just pay attention to how I connect together. I'll just get my pattern ruler, connect to these 3 points that I showed now. So I'll place my pattern ruler on these 3 points like this and go ahead to connect with my pattern ruler. So after doing this, next thing I just want to do after that is to connect the other part. So just watch, ensure to just place your pattern ruler well and connect. I'm done connecting that. The next thing is to connect the, should I say now, I'll connect the 1 2 3 points. I really do not know how to know them, but 1 2 and this other end point. So just go ahead to connect just on the part where we've marked. I know this is kind of a bit tricky, but just pay attention to the lines that I marked out and go ahead to connect. So this, now we're done for the front of our sleeve, front sleeve, and we're moving to the back. So this is our back. So the first I want to do now is this part. I'll just want to go ahead to get the midpoint from there. So that is the part that we marked our half inch up. So I'll just want to go ahead, get the half point from that point and go ahead to mark it down. And then from that point, I'm going to come down by 0.3 inch and go ahead to mark it. So I'll just want to maybe use a straight ruler to connect to the 0.3. So because I'm going to connect these lines together, so when connecting it, I'll be able to note them. So off the camera, I've gone to mark this part out. I don't know, it was a mistake. My camera was not recording, but I'll just explain. So I got the midpoint of that part and I also came up there by 0.5 inch and I used my pattern ruler just to connect the midline there. So the next thing I just want to do now is to use my pattern ruler to connect all the lines that we've marked out for the back. So just watch how I use my pattern ruler to connect it. So when connecting, just try it. I just went ahead to connect down to this other point and I also want to go ahead to connect. So just try to place your pattern ruler well so that your curve can come out well. So next thing, when we're done now, we'll just move on next. So I just want to ask that you please subscribe, and if you've not subscribed, just do well to subscribe. You also do well to like and probably drop a little comment. So thank you. Now I just want to do now is to use my pattern ruler to go ahead to blend all the sharp lines that I have. And after this part, the next thing I just want to go ahead to do is to cut out the fabric and also cut out my lining. So because I really did not have the video for how I did the fabric for the this thing, fabric and the lining for the sleeve, I'll just want to use my mouth to explain that. So this is my lining. I've gone ahead to cut out and I added half inch when 1 inch round, but I added just half inch for the top part. So I went ahead to notch out for the back so that when sewing I'll be able to note the part that is for the back. So so for the back, for the lining part, what I did, I made the lining same width, everything same thing, but for the length is same length with my pattern paper. So that's saying the length is 1 inch shorter than the normal fabric. And I also went ahead to sew just the hem, and after sewing the hem I went ahead to turn it over. So that is what I have here, and which is what I did. So the next thing we just want to move on to is sew to our dress, to sew to our top, so which I'm just going to go ahead to show how to go about that. So this is my blouse, and I went ahead to open this part so that when turning over, we'll use there to turn over. So this is what the lining looks like. Like I said, I went to sew the hem and I folded, and I also went ahead to press. So you take note of the center and place it here and go ahead. This is just for the fabric and the main fabric to the main fabric. Take note of the center. We can also use your pin to hold it down and go ahead to sew round. So after sewing round, next one, this is what I have now after sewing round. So the next thing I just want to do is to go ahead to close it. So I just want to go ahead now, open it just as you see me do, but when opening it, you turn it to the other side and go ahead to close the sides to get the side by 1 inch, or the allowance, the extra allowance you have there. So this is what I have. I just want to open it up, and so go now to my sewing machine and close this side up just from the lining to the fabric. So after that, which is what I have done here, the next thing I want to do now is to sew our lining to the lining part. So this part which I opened there, you just want to go ahead to turn the lining from that part. You will turn it over out, you bring it out from that part and sew lining to lining. So just watch how I'm going to do that. You just want to go ahead to turn over and turn from that part. So that part is what we're going to be using to turn over, and you do this for both sleeve. And when you are done with this, what you will just want to do is to top stitch that part, or you could hand tack it. So I'm just trying to place the camera in a way that we can get a good view. I'll place this, like lay my sleeve well, and we just want to go ahead to turn over. So before then, I'll just use my office pin to hold these parts together, but I will not be able to hold all of it together, but I'll just want to use to hold it together so that when I turn it over to that part, I will not be confused on how to lay it where. So now you go ahead, you turn it over and go to our sewing machine and go ahead to sew round by ½ inch round. And after sewing round, you bring it back and you turn it back. And at that point, you say you're done with your blouse. So thank you for watching, and please do not forget to also like, do not forget to subscribe, and do not forget to drop a beautiful comment. If you have any question, you can drop in the comment section and I'll be there to answer. So this is what our final blouse look like. Thank you for staying to this point.